Hello, welcome to your next virtual meeting or virtual lesson. This lesson is on forestry and water. So first things first, you should be looking at this sheet, following along with this sheet and this sheet. Forestry and water. All right, so first, think about forestry. I'm sure you're familiar with the word water and know what water is, but what is forestry? As you can see in my lovely drawing, forestry has to do with trees. So like a forest is an area full of trees. So think about if you've ever heard the word forestry before. Likely it has something to do with the forest. So I'll let you think about that for a minute. Forestry is an industry where people cut down trees to use it for wood, for lumber, for lots of different things. Paper, wood for building a house, wood for building all kinds of things. Yeah, so keep that in mind. If you've ever heard forestry or if you make any connections with the forestry industry while we learn about forestry and water. So I'm just going to read following along on this page. So I will present this one. All right, so if we go to, do I want to do that? Not really. This is what I want to do. Okay, so if we go to the top here, forestry. Can you guess which region in Alberta has the greatest amount of logging, aka cutting down trees? If you guess the boreal forest, you're correct. Forests are a renewable resource. It is always possible to grow new trees. So renewable resource means a resource that can be renewed. So trees can be grown again after you cut them down, so it's renewable. In Alberta, there are regulations that prevent logging companies from cutting down too many trees or from cutting down trees faster than they are growing. The forestry industry, just like most of the other industries we've learned about so far, contribute billions of dollars to the Canadian economy. Trees can be turned into many different products. In the cloud below, brainstorm as many items as you can think of that are made with wood or paper. Watch the following video on the Natural Resources Canada website and add any new uses for wood to your cloud above that you did not know about before. So we're going to watch a video about forestry. So we are going to go to right here. All right. So I will play the video now about forestry.
People think that clear cuts are bad because it's destroying a significant area of forest in a short amount of time. Our practices actually mimic those of nature. Even before the area was settled, there were windstorms such as tornadoes, fires, droughts, ice storms that caused natural havoc on the land.
In general, we tend to look upon forests that have been cut as ugly. We see a field full of stumps as being a sign of devastation. Sustainable forestry in the most basic sense is simply managing the forest so that you can get some sort of product out of it, and yet it can continue producing that product indefinitely in the future.
The clear cutting at the turn of the century was entirely different. It was simply an extractive industry. It didn't care about wildlife. It didn't care about regeneration. It didn't care about ecosystems.
The wood that we produce here comes from well-managed, sustainable forests. And by that, I mean that it is third-party, independently looked at to see that we have protected the environment, taken care of the ecosystems, protected the biodiversity of the various species within the forest.
Our global positioning system consists of a backpack unit and an antenna along with a data recorder that a forester carries with him. The trees with the orange bands are what we call our long-term residuals. They're not going to be harvested now or in the future at all. The trees with the green bands are here to drop seed for seedlings and also to provide dispersed light so those seeds can germinate and the seedlings develop. We have to balance all of those uses with what we know will do to perpetuate the forest in the future.
100% of the products from our wood certified. If a consumer would look at two boards that were from the same species, same size and thickness and grade, you would not see any difference between a certified piece of lumber and one that is non-certified. The difference would be from the heart. When you would see one that was certified, you would know that it was from a well-managed forest.
Okay. So perfect. All right. Now we will go to the sheet again. So return to your resource sheet here, and the next question says, can you think of a concern that might be in regards to the forest industry? So is there any problems or things to worry about with the forest industry? So write your response on the lines there below, and also make sure to consider what we learned in the video that we just watched. Do you know what the word sustainable means? Sustain is like to keep something going or to make something last. So sustain, and sustainable is basically refers to practices or actions that they take while cutting down trees to make sure that they don't cut them all down or lose all the trees or use too many trees. So sustainable forestry is safe and lasting use of trees or cutting down trees. All right, and if you didn't pause earlier to fill in your brainstorm bubble, please do that with any uses you can think of for wood or paper. And when you're ready, you can move on. After you've filled in the questions in the brainstorm bubble, you can move on to water with me. So water, I'm sure you know what water is. Water, another important natural resource in Alberta is water. Water sources in Alberta include glaciers, so ice or frozen water up in the mountains, near the Canadian Rocky Mountains, so glaciers near the Canadian Rocky Mountains, groundwater stored under the Earth's surface, rivers, and more. Approximately 80% of Alberta's water supply is in northern Alberta. Groundwater is usually accessed by people living in rural Alberta in the form of wells. So if you live on a farm or an acreage outside of a city, you usually have water that comes from a well. So people dig a hole in the ground or dig a well, and then you can take water out from deep into the ground. And that's the water for your house, for your garden hose, for everything. People in the city usually have like a city serviced water source. So all of the neighborhoods in the cities are plumbed, so connected by pipes to wherever they receive their water from. So I live in Calgary, so my water comes from the Glenmore Reservoir, which is like a big lake if you've never been there. And they pump that water out, filter it and clean it, and then the city pumps the water through pipes that come to my house. But like I said, if you live in rural, then your water comes from underground usually. The agriculture industry, think agriculture, we just learned about agriculture, uses large amounts of water, usually from lakes and rivers, for the irrigation or watering of their crops. So to grow plants, obviously you need water, so watering crops is what farmers do. So they need a lot of water to be able to water big crops. Did you know the water you have in your home has been treated for you to be able to drink safely? In some cities in Alberta, storm drains are not treated and instead flow directly into bodies of water. So, a storm drain, if you've ever been to Calgary, a storm drain is like a vent or drain on the side of the road or in parking lots on the ground. It's like a metal grate that has holes in it that water goes into. So storm drains in some cities just go straight into like the river or a lake or something like that. This means that any fertilizers, salts, or manures found on the ground and carried into the drains will end up in the local lakes and rivers. This has a tremendous impact on creatures that live in these rivers and lakes. So ideally, we don't like to see water that's polluted or affected by fertilizer, salt, or manure or other chemicals go straight into water sources because it affects the ecosystem, the animals and plants that live in these areas. The following video talks about some of the ways we use water every day. After you watch, write down at least 2 ways that you use water in your own life that were not mentioned in the video. 2 ways you use water are, so keep that in mind while you're watching the video.
The moment you wake up and turn off the alarm clock, you have already entered the wonder of water. Your clock and the light you just flipped on are gifts of the river. A thundering current of water has been transformed into a current of electricity that provides power for all the necessities of our comfortable lives. And we are comfortable. With 600 large dams, Canada generates more hydroelectric power per capita than any other country in the world. Where it is not possible to generate hydroelectricity, water is heated to create steam that turns turbines to create power. Wherever you get your electricity, water likely played a role in generating it. You find your way into the bathroom. With the push of a lever, water takes away the wastes generated in your body as a result of the millions of biochemical processes that kept you alive while you slept. These processes are possible because of water stored in and between your cells. Now you're awake, and it's time to enjoy a hot shower. As you stand under the refreshing cascade, you don't think about Environment Canada statistics that indicate that unless you use a low-flow shower head, it can take between 150 and 230 liters of water to have a 10-minute shower. Clean and refreshed, you set about picking out your clothes for the day. You don't think about the fact that regardless of the fibers out of which your clothes might be made, at least 100 times their weight in water will have gone into their manufacture. It's interesting to note that while clothing labels seldom explain the role water has played in making the fabrics, most clothing is clearly marked with instructions on how to wash it. Over their life, as much water goes into the cleaning of your favorite clothes as went into making them. According to Environment Canada, it takes on average between 130 and 270 liters of water to wash a single load of laundry. Dressed and good to go, you make your way to the kitchen. Lost in your plans for the day, you turn on the kitchen tap. You don't think about where this water comes from. It's just there. You fill a jug with water and add a can of concentrated orange juice. The nutritious tang of the orange is owed to the remarkable solvent qualities of water. Water holds the sweetness of the world in suspension, ready for us to taste. But it does so at a cost. It can take 900 liters of water to produce a single liter of orange juice. Your stomach growls for something to eat, and you decide on a big bowl of your favorite breakfast cereal. From the farmer's field to the processing plant and into your breakfast bowl, you never think about the water it takes to grow your food. But in the end, it is water that makes agriculture possible. To grow and process a box of oat cereal, it takes the equivalent of 100 boxes of water. On average, growing food for one person for 1 year takes about 1,100 cubic meters of water. How much water is that? If you fill up a regular-sized bathtub 2,500 times, That is how much water it takes to grow food for one person for 1 year. Stepping out into the clean morning air, you survey your world through a lens of air and water. You're pleased because your ride is right on time. As you climb into the car, you don't give a second's thought to the vast quantities of water that were used in making this automobile. There's not a single step in the manufacturing process of this vehicle that did not at some stage require water. It takes 90 liters of water to create 1 kilogram of steel, and steel is only one component in the production of a car. It takes 50 tons of water to create 1 ton of automobile. Driving down your street, you wave to your neighbor who is out watering the lawn. Water is what keeps the lawn green and the flowers blooming. You can be sure he's not thinking about the 19 liters of water per minute it takes on average for outdoor watering with a small sprinkler. With the gas gauge on empty, your ride pulls into a service station. Water is required to recover and process oil that is pushed up from deep beneath the Earth's surface. It can take 10 liters of water to refine 1 liter of gasoline. You pump 50 liters of gasoline into your car. What you don't pump into it is the 500 liters of water that went into making it. Thirsty for something cold to drink, you buy a bottle of water. Even though you could fill a liter-sized bottle with clean, fresh water from your kitchen sink 20 times for just 1 penny, you assume that bottled water is better. That bottle of water often costs more per liter than the gasoline that was just pumped into the tank. At last, you arrive at school. It doesn't occur to you that every sheet of paper, stick of furniture, pen, pencil, poster, and decoration in your school required water to manufacture. Not just a little water either, but lots of it. It takes 300 liters of water to create just 1 kilogram of paper. Think about how much water you have used so far today, and your day has just started. Depending upon where and how you live and what you eat, it can take between 2.25 million to 4.5 million liters of water per year per person to sustain the way of life we enjoy today. Multiply our personal daily reliance on water by Canada's 30 million people, and you will have some idea of our reliance on water as a nation and our impact on water as a resource. Now multiply our personal water use by the 6 billion inhabitants of planet Earth, and you quickly discover how a water crisis could be created on this planet. Canada is wealthy because it has water. When you take the time to think about it, you quickly realize that your way of life is completely, utterly, and absolutely dependent on water. Add it all up, and it's easy to see why. Every drop counts.
All right, so that was very interesting to hear about all the ways that we use water and how water and our whole lives are very interconnected. So that's something to think about. So this question here asks you to list 2 ways that you use water. Try to at least use 2 ways. If you can think of more, that would be good too, to list more ways that you use water. So I'll just go back to the top here. So some ways you can use wood should be like building, furniture, desks even, and then books, paper, writing. Those are just a few ideas. I'm sure you can think of quite a few. And then some concerns about forestry would include running out of trees, kind of. So like losing trees, running out of trees. Like they talked about in the video, creating ugly spaces or bland spaces with stumps. So those sort of things. Animals even and their habitats, animals who live in trees, animals who use trees for food. So anything like that, your answers may vary or be different. And then 2 ways that you use water, your answers should be different for that as well, but I'm sure that you can come up with at least 2 after watching that video. So remember, if you came through here and you realize you forgot something, you can go back or pause or do anything that you need to, but that should be everything. So We learned about forestry and water today. So think about when you leave school or when you're out and about how forestry affects your life living in Alberta. So how much would you use, or if you know somebody who works in the forestry industry, or when you're using wood or paper or any products that come from trees, think about how that affects your life. And same with water. All of us use tons of water every day. So think about as you pour a glass of water for yourself or leave the shower on or the tap on, think about how that affects our water supply and how you use water every day. Maybe you know somebody who works in water treatment or works at a dam. So think about those things as you go through your life and how Alberta's resources help you, or how we can protect Alberta's resources so we have them in the future. If you have any questions, as always, ask Miss Crystal or another adult in the room, and thanks for listening.